Hey there, it's Justin again, the Fully Live Athlete Pastor, and we are on day 77 of the online Bible reading club. We're going to be looking at the last three chapters of Deuteronomy 32 through 34 and the last half of Mark 15, starting in verse 27 to the end of the chapter. Well, guys, this is some of the most important words you can read. And as we look at the Deuteronomy passage, I want to highlight the difference in Moses and Jesus. The difference in Moses and Jesus. Now, Moses, it says at the end of Deuteronomy, these are the last three chapters of the book, that there was never a prophet like Moses who arose and could do the things like he did in the time. That was true. Now, Moses gave them, think about it, he's 120 years old man, weary. He's lived through so much, and then he gives them this song that he lists out in Deuteronomy 32. It's called the Song of Moses, and he wants them to commit these things, write them down. We just saw in 31 that God commanded him to write all these things down, so he writes this song down for them to sing. And what they're going to do over history is they're going to sing about how faithful and just God is. He's their creator. He loves them. He chose them out of all the nations. He's their protector, their guide, their provider. I'm just summarizing it through here. But yet, even though they've had all these things, they sin against him. They turn to other gods. It says in verse 17, they sacrificed to demons that were not gods. They forgot the God who created them and gave them birth there. And so therefore, he's faithful. What's he going to do with faithless children? He's going to judge them. He's going to kindle his wrath against them, verse 22. You're going to see that what they've sought, he's going to give them up to all that they've seek. And what they're going to seek is actually going to be like poison for them. He uses the language of, in 32, grapes of poison and wine of like poison of serpents. So it's going to be, that's what they want, but it's going to be poisonous that they're going to seek after. Well, then you look at God's going to provide vengeance. Vengeance is mine. Recompense is mine. I will repay. And that's quoted 2 times in the New Testament. Romans and in Hebrews, it's talking about verse 35. But then you see a shift in verse 36. Moses knew this was coming. Listen to this. It says, for the Lord will vindicate his people. What? The Lord's going to pour out vengeance up through verse 35. But then you see verse 36, he's going to vindicate his people. Redemption's coming. They will mock God. All the people will look at the people and say, well, how could God be God if he's not saving his people? Think about when you see that historically. Jesus, and when people look at the Son of God, the King of the Jews, and they look, well, who is this God? Look at him. What a mockery they make of him, cursing him and mocking him at the cross. You see, that's what they did. That's what Israel called. Israel caused the nations to mock God and say, where's your gods? It looks like you're failing here. That's what Jesus said. It looks like he was failing. But God will reveal his glory. And how's he going to do that? You see in verse 41 it says, I will sharpen my flashing sword. Where do you see a flashing sword? Well, Genesis 3:24. The flashing sword guards the way to the tree of life. All of God's people are barred from the tree of life. But the Son of God will go through the flashing sword and be torn to bits. It says, my sword will devour flesh. My arrows will be drunk with blood. He was pierced and his blood drips. And it cleanses, as it says in verse 43, his people's lands. He repays those who hate him, and he cleanses his people's land. He avenges the blood of his children, takes vengeance on his adversaries. He did it through the one who had no sin, through pouring out the vengeance of sin and idolatry on the one who had no sin, himself, Jesus. And it says there, you're going to take this, you're going to sing it in the land that I'm going to give to you, and Moses is going to die. Now, he's going to give a final blessing to all the tribes before he dies. That's in verse 33. But I really want to highlight chapter 34. It's a very short chapter. And the difference in the death of Moses and the death of Jesus, which highlights their differences. Now, when Genesis 3:15 happened, and we keep going back to this verse because you got to know this verse to understand the whole Bible, it says that God is going to essentially provide another man to come after Adam from Eve. He's going to be born of natural generation from men and women. and he will be the one who will crush the head of the serpent who's brought about the temptation and sin and fall and curse. And this one who will crush the serpent will be bruised or afflicted in his doing so. Well, who is that? It's the Christ. And we keep seeing, well, maybe it's him. Maybe it's him. Well, Eve thought it would be Cain, the firstborn of Adam and Eve. And it wasn't. He became a murderer. Would it be Moses? If anybody, Moses should do it. But no, he failed. And God lays out his accusations in chapter at the end of 32 and also in 34 about how he's in Deuteronomy about how he's not treated God as holy and he's rebelled against God. He wasn't the perfect Redeemer, but he was a shadow of it, a type of it. So what's going to happen to him is that Moses' death is not going to be observed. It's going to be on Mount Nebo, away from all. Moses is going to glimpse the promised land. He's going to look from Mount Nebo across the Jordan to see Jericho and see the land flowing with milk and honey. But he's going to fall dead there and be taken and gathered up to his people. Now, Jesus, on the other hand, if you look at Jesus' death in Mark 15, 27 through following, is that he was crucified between thieves in public on another mountain. Moses was killed on the mountain, but Jesus also is slain on a mountain, on a cross in Mount Zion. And it says they mocked him, and he saved others. He can't save himself. That's exactly the song that they just sang. God can't save. Where's your God? They mocked him. That's exactly what Moses said they would say, right? Then you go to the death. He says, Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? The Aramaic is quoted there because it is so noteworthy. It's translated, of course, as my God, why have you forsaken me? But that's the exact words of Jesus in Aramaic on the cross. He is crushed. He goes through the flaming sword without the presence of his Father to be having the unmitigated curse for their breaking the law, and dies. Someone brings the vinegar and now leave it. It says there, now leave him alone. With a loud cry, it says Jesus breathed his last. And you see the temple veil was torn. He died. And he leads us into the very presence of God, the thing that Moses has written about. The temple veil is torn in two. Now, you see that when people died, when Moses died, no one saw it, but when Jesus died, many people saw it. Mary is mentioned there, Mary Magdalene, so the mother, and then the good friend. You've got several others listed there in the text, and they're right there. When Jesus was buried, Pilate observed the dead body, Joseph of Arimathea of Jesus, and they took him to the tomb that Joseph of Arimathea brokered there for him. And it says, and the women who were following a distance saw where he was laid. It was very important to see where Jesus was laid, what tomb he was in, because you know what? Moses' death would not atone for anyone, but Jesus' death would. And the proof of that is in the pudding. It's in that Jesus rose from his death. So to see where his body was laid was extremely important. Moses, where he was dead, not so important. And when Moses died, it says in the text in 34 of Deuteronomy, they mourned for 30 days before they decided to cross over. They had a period of mourning. Jesus, he was mocked. Very few people cared. In 32 and 34 of Deuteronomy, probably the greatest gathering of people in one place in history. You're talking about probably 1 million or so people that are gathered to listen to Moses and to celebrate him, right? Very few at Jesus' death. But when Jesus rises and when he returns in the days to come, Revelation calls it a multitude, 10,000 times 10,000, a multitude that no one could count will be gathered around the throne, giving thanks and glory and honor to the Lamb. That's the whole message of the Old Testament. Where's the Lamb? He is the one who John the Baptist will identify in John 1, and he's the one who was slain on a mountain by God's hand. God would not save him until 3 days later. He'd be resurrected from the dead for our salvation. Anyone who wants to believe in Jesus can trust in him and be forgiven of their sins and live with him forevermore, and gather with him and eat of the tree of life and live with him forevermore, because the one has been pierced by the flashing, flaming sword of God's wrath, Jesus Christ, the Son of God, and he's resurrected. Okay, this is the good news. I implore you, keep reading the Bible. It will bless your soul. It will give you health in your body and soul, that you will be full of the joy of the Lord. And no matter what you're going through, there is great and wonderful blessings in knowing God and knowing him only in Jesus Christ, his Son. If you're following another way, you're following demons. You're following things that cannot save you. Please turn from those ways and look to Jesus Christ alone, the one revealed in Scriptures. All right, with that said, like the video, please. Comment, ask questions, share what you're learning. I would love to hear from you. We'll be doing an online Bible reading club live stream very soon. I'll keep you up on that. Keep reading, though. Appreciate you guys tuning in. See you next time. Bye.